Welcome to Catholic Education Matters, the podcast that celebrates the beauty of Catholic education. Join us as we share the stories of those making a lasting impact on Catholic education. Let's begin. Good day, everybody. Welcome to Catholic Education Matters. Happy to be here today with Mark Blackwood.
Thanks, Troy.
Mark is the architect, or one of the principals at Ekistics Architecture.
That's right.
And Mark is the lead architect for our project, St. John Paul II Academy, which is almost finished. It's under construction now. Yeah. This September we'll be ready for action. And so, Mark, we've been actually working together on this project. Well, we met through another channel. We were working on the same project for a luxury home that we were building on the west side of Vancouver.
That's right, yeah.
That's how we were really originally introduced and started doing some design on some of the other development work. And then thought, hey, this is a great partnership. And we introduced you to St. John Paul II Academy as a potential project back then.
Yeah, thanks for that.
And well, it's worked out really well. And so we started dabbling in it was even just kind of in the feasibility stage. Didn't even know where we were going to be building the school.
Yeah, I think we looked at a couple sites at that time.
Yep.
Not even the site that we're kind of building on today. So interesting to sort of see how it's kind of evolved over the past 8 to 10 years.
8 to 10 years,
it's been a while.
It's been more than 10 years for myself and some of the other people some of the other parents on the team that kind of championed the project. But you were there early on.
Yeah.
So you've seen me age over the years, the stress of a project like this, but it's been great. It's been a great partnership. So congratulations on the success that you've had with the project.
Yeah, and I think over that time, we've had the benefit of seeing our own kids kind of go up to high school. So
exactly.
I guess there's a benefit there.
Yes. Yeah. So, and my oldest has already graduated from the school, but because we're on a temporary campus. My youngest will be the first one to graduate from the new campus. Her first class will be. And she was really kind of my motivation, initially out of the gate. But we started planning this campus early on as a smaller school. Originally, we were thinking, maybe 600 students max. And then we, sort of did some studies around the area to find out, what was the growth and, what was the need going to be. And then we were like, oh, wow, we're thinking way too small. So the current school.
Yeah, you look at Surrey as a city, and there's a real desperate need for schools. And, especially with the rate of development that's happening. So to kind of expand the scope, I think made a lot of sense to really address what the need is, not only today, but, for years to
come. In the future. Yeah. The, just to put it in perspective for some of the people that are watching, we have, in the city of Vancouver proper, there's about 50,000 kids in K to 12. And the Archdiocese, there's 4 Catholic high schools in the city of Vancouver proper to service those 50,000 students. And in Surrey, we have 85,000 kids in K to 12, and it's growing. At the time we started the project, we only had one Catholic high school. That was Holy Cross, a big Catholic school of over 800 students, 8 to 12. And now there's us. So we're the small school now, but we're building the new campus for how many students?
Well, we're looking at about 900 kids.
900.
Yeah, and I think it'll be interesting for, folks who maybe don't know where the school is along 24th Avenue. You drive by there today, and it's kind of it feels like it's in the middle of nowhere to some degree.
Yeah.
And
green space.
But if you look at the neighborhood plan for Surrey for that area, it won't be too long in the future where you're going to see a lot of residential development, townhomes, apartments, everything kind of popping up around where the school is. So, that's just going to reinforce that need for kind of more spaces in schools.
That's right.
So this is going to be a good contributor to that.
There's a public school that just opened up just down the road from us. And it opened up, I think, 4 years ago. And to put it in perspective, it opened up for 1,600 students right away, and it was full the day it opened,
Yeah.
8 to 12. And now I think there's over 1,700 students. They already have, I think, 9 portables on the site.
Yeah.
They're running a split shift in classes so that some students start at 8 or 8:30 or something like that and stay till 2, and the next group comes in at 9 and they stay till 4, just to try and accommodate so schools in general in the area are really needed.
Yeah.
Let alone Catholic schools. And so we were way far behind in that. And then, so this is something interesting to talk about. We started out with just over 9 acres of land. And that in itself is tough to fit a school, a big high school with all the amenities, and including a sports field.
Yeah.
It's tough. Now, we also had to put road dedication setbacks, first of all, along 24th Avenue. And then we had to add a road on the other 3 sides.
Yeah.
So the road dedications, that we had to give a lot back.
Yeah. You start off with what you think is your piece of property, and then that pie kind of gets sliced away for kind of what's needed for the city infrastructure, like you said, kind of roads on all, additional 3 roads on the other 3 sides of the site. And then, sport fields, right, are huge. And then there's the parking demand for a school as well. So, I think part of our job as architects is to sort of take that program from the site. What does the site or the school need to be? What needs to go into it? How do we fit that on the land? There's topography to the site. It's not, sites sometimes look flat, but, when you're spreading that across 9 acres, there's actually, a pretty good big grade difference from north to south through the site.
That's right.
So on the one hand, these are interesting challenges. And in this case, it actually provided us the opportunity to put our parking below grade.
That's right.
So the nice thing about I like to refer to it as a campus, right?
Yeah.
Because I think it evokes a bit more of a student-centered kind of place.
Yeah.
Quite often you'll approach schools and what's the first thing you see is a big parking lot, right? Whereas I think in this case, the challenge then becomes an opportunity to sort of bury the parking, have the ground plane really be taken over by landscaping and sports fields and outdoor spaces for students. So,
right.
And I think the parents will enjoy this. Now they have the opportunity to go underground, pick up and drop off their students in a covered environment. So in the thick of winter, you're not darting in from the rain, and so you're sort of a nice comfortable area to sort of drop off and pick up your kids. So I think that was a challenge and an opportunity, and I think as we can kind of see on the drawing here, the school is really centered around kind of this courtyard experience. So that was sort of a main sort of early design decision in the process to sort of make sure that we're not just designing a building, we're designing connections to outdoor spaces as well.
That's right. Swing back to the underground parking before we move on to more exciting parts of the school.
Yeah.
Because the underground parking, that came up as a challenge when we said, okay, actually we need more space because we need to build a bigger school.
Yes.
And that was, we came across that fairly early on. And so parking became an issue right away. It's like, well, if we're going to have surface parking, that's going to take up area that we could be building, classrooms, what have you. So now, fortunately, our property sloped.
Mm-hmm.
So because underground parking is not cheap.
No.
If you got to go straight down and you're dealing with all kinds of ramps and things like that, it costs a lot of money. So what did we do on our site to try and mitigate that somewhat so that we could relatively reduce some of the underground parking?
Well, I think when you look at the sloping site, the benefit is you're not having to excavate down the full depth of kind of one story.
Yeah.
Kind of half of the parking is buried into the slope.
Yeah.
The other half to the north, in our case, is essentially above ground.
Right.
So that kind of introduces another challenge of, well, you don't really want your elevation along 24th Avenue to be a view of parking, right? So that's where we decided that the school really needs to kind of wrap over top and then down in front of the parking. So the lower floor of the school, as it kind of fronts onto 24th Avenue, is classrooms and sort of program space for the school and not parking.
And we got all windows there.
Yeah. So I think as people sort of drive around the school, I think the parking kind of disappears, and it's really about the more exciting kind of classroom and kind of places for students, not places for cars.
So when we're designing that, it's different for a school, especially a high school, rather than, let's say, an office building. Parking, people come, they park, they stay, and, they have their working day, and then they go back and they leave. Whereas with school, you have staff that does that, but a huge part is drop-off.
It's a busy time of day.
And it happens all at once, so it has to be designed for traffic flow.
Yes.
And I think you spent a lot of time on that, getting it right.
We did. We had to work with, the city of Surrey had certain requirements of how they wanted traffic to sort of move through the site and how it connects to the public streets, which is kind of really their main concern. And then also worked with traffic engineers to sort of work out sort of an optimum flow to ensure there's sort of a safe and kind of organized way to sort of drop off and pick up students. So it's a relatively big parkade, and so there's lots of room, especially at the drop off area. We specifically made the drop off lanes kind of extra wide, so there's safe zones kind of adjacent to cars to allow students to get out and then make their way into the entrances at the parkade level.
Right.
But a lot of studies kind of went into trying to make sure that flow was safe and efficient, because I think as a parent and a parent with two kids in schools and whatnot, we can appreciate that kind of pick up and drop off time. It can be a bit chaotic. So we need to kind of really think that through.
So it's great to be out of the weather. Number one, that's an added bonus. And the other thing is for it to flow during that stressful time when you're trying to get kids dropped off there. So we also have transit right in front of the school. So public transit
right on 24th,
right there. So, and we've got an entrance into the school just right from the transit as well.
Correct.
So we got a few different entrances. We got entrances from the underground. They'll most likely be the busiest ones. And then we've kind of got the fancy entrance right at the front of the school, which probably couriers get to use more than anybody. It's not going to be the highest traffic entrance, but it is quite a grand entrance that was designed in the front of the school. So, and then we also, so we had to build the roads to equip handling the traffic around the school. And we also have put a traffic light in on 24th Avenue.
That's right.
So at our costs. So we've got probably $10 million worth of off-site civil costs to that basically we give back to the city. Quite often people believe that the city, our cities and municipalities build the roads. It's actually, the new roads, actually the developers and the developments that come in that actually pay for that.
Yeah. And we also had the unique situation where, as I was saying, like the school is a little bit, there's not much around it right now. So the city infrastructure hasn't really caught up with that area of Surrey. So the capacity of the sewer system, wasn't at a point where it could really handle the volumes that a sort of a high school would put into it. So, like you say, you talk about the off-site work.
Right.
The school had to figure out a way to really put in their own system to sort of make sure and tie that in with the city system. To ensure there's adequate capacity. So, it's not the, it's not the, the pretty stuff to talk about, but it's a lot of the, these issues that go on behind the scenes that really go into realizing a project like this.
And that took several years for us to get that all put together, in planning before we could actually start building anything. And the sewer, we had to connect, what is that, over 20, almost 2 kilometers. We have to go down 24th Avenue with a temporary sewer line.
Yeah. Yeah.
To hook into the sewer over there, because we don't know how long it's going to take before the city sewer actually ends up coming to the front of our site. So we had to do a $1.5 million temporary city hookup. But it was either that or wait and wait and wait and wait, and it could be indefinite, you know, as to how long the sewer would come there. So once again, not the pretty things to talk about, but that's reality and their costs. So all those costs add up, and these are things that you have to spend money on that nobody sees. And, you know, you just assume that when the toilet flushes, everything works, right? So
yeah, and I think it just touches on kind of just a couple of the really sort of complex things that go into sort of realizing a school or really any kind of development. You know, even, you know, some environmental issues on site to sort of work through, which take a long time to get city approvals, governmental, you know, both provincial and federal approvals. So yeah, it's a process.
It's a big process.
Yeah.
You know, one of the early on meetings that we're having as things were getting going, we had a meeting at your office and we got all the consultants together. This would have been before COVID, because now we seem to do all of those meetings on Zoom.
That's right.
Rarely do we all get together.
Yeah.
But we had 14 different consultants in the room at the time, you know, that so all with a different profession, you know, mechanical engineer, electrical engineer, the acoustical engineers. What are some of the other ones that we have on for engineers?
Oh, like you say, there's a list. You know, you've got structural engineers, mechanical, electrical, code consultants, traffic engineers, environmental arborists. The list goes on. So there's a lot of disciplines at the table, each with their own particular kind of interests and specialty that we kind of need to pull together. And sort of then it's only after we kind of get the input from all of those parties that we sort of, understand the full scope. And then the process begins of, how do we begin to mesh all of this together into sort of a final design solution that satisfies all of those disciplines. So it's a technically difficult process to sort of orchestrate all of that, and then kind of layer that onto a design that's responsive of all of those individual disciplines, but also something that looks great and something that's really going to kind of stand out and stand the test of time. It's got to function well. It's got to look good, and then it has to all of those support. Like if one of those things is done wrong, it shows up. Right. It comes up quite often later. Even with the acoustical side of things, you've got a gym. It's like, how are we soundproofing that from the classrooms that are close by? Actually, our gym is right next door to our chapel. That's right.
Or they share a wall. It's like, okay, well, how are we going to make sure that when there's a class going on that people aren't listening to people screaming while they're, trying to worship in the chapel at the same time? Things like that show up big time if it's not well thought out and handled early on. So that's great. Let's flip over to design, which is obviously
the good stuff.
That's where your expertise is. We had some inspirations. I have a building background. I build a lot of fancy stuff, expensive homes. We see luxury things all the time. So I might not have been the greatest person to lead the project in terms of trying to do things cheaply, but we had budgets that we had to try and stay within. I love things that look great. And early on, we wanted to say, okay, let's build something that's somewhat timeless. We have to plan for the next, not just, while our kids are in school or the next generation, but let's look past the next 100 years, or let's look out to the next 100 years. Let's build something that's really functional, that looks great, that's going to, have a sense of timelessness and that's a challenge. So we started out by, we sent you some inspiration photos of what we'd like to see, but then we also toured a bunch of other schools. Can you walk us down that path a little bit?
I do remember one of our kind of first sit downs, and I think it was a good dynamic, because I think you came to the table with sort of a, kind of quite a clear directive of, we want sort of a cost effective but inspiring place,
Yep.
right? And those two things can exist together. And so the school itself started to sort of, right from day one, kind of take a relatively rational approach to its form, right? Not kind of doing too many things that were curves and angles, and keeping the form of the
defying gravity,
quite rectilinear, quite
Yeah.
rational. But I think even with those types of kind of architectural forms, or massing as we like to call it, there's real opportunity for a sense of architectural clarity.
Yeah.
So that was sort of a good starting off point for us. And then, like you say, we sort of began our sort of design and exploration process. And at the time, and even today, the school was quite small.
Yeah.
So we had to look kind of outside of what the school was as a kind of an existing facility, because you're kind of operating in kind of a temporary space right now.
Yep.
And so we toured both Catholic schools and public schools, kind of around the Lower Mainland. And it was, I think it was
mostly new ones or newer ones.
Yeah, newer ones. And I think, I consciously doing that to sort of understand, okay, what our educational space is kind of looking like these days.
Yeah.
Right. And, I think the schools we went to go visit had many different ways of approaching educational space, more your traditional, often called kind of cells and bells approach, where you've just got hallways and individual classrooms. And that may be more the traditional approach, that may be schools that kind of we went to.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of innovation that's kind of happened in education. And, I think the teachers will have a lot of input on that. But the schools we went to go see had lots of different approaches to classroom spaces, some that were more open to, lounges, and ones that were creating kind of individual, what they like to call sort of neighborhoods within the school. And I think it was really shedding light on the importance of kids learn differently. Not everyone learns the same way. There's way more emphasis on sort of collaboration and the way, not only the way kids learn and kind of the way teachers like to structure their classrooms, but also kind of beyond schools. It's how we work as a culture a little bit more, I think, and more that sort of collaborative approach. And I want to say we went to probably, 6 to 8 schools over the years, and really kind of looked at those individually and say, okay, what would define St. John Paul II? And, how does that, how do we want this school to feel? And at the time, we were working with the principal and staff of the existing school to really kind of try and drill down on how was this school meant to sort of feel and operate. So it was an interesting process, and I think everyone got a lot of good information out of it.
That's
and
right.
Ultimately, that sort of began to sort of weave its way into our design as well.
We during those tours, not only some really great questions that were asked, because we talked about talked to, I should say, and interviewed teachers and administrators that were using the space, not just to find out what they liked about it. This is great. We let them brag, and then we said, okay, what's not working right? What do you wish you had done differently? That's where we kind of got a lot of really good information. Even I remember being at Archbishop Carney, and they had the new music and band wing, I believe, there.
Yeah.
And one of the things that they said, what we wish we had is more storage for instruments. That was, and we're like,
tubas are big.
Tubas are big, exactly. Soundproofing, all those types of things, which are somewhat obvious, but it's like, yeah, right. We need. So in our band room, we've got some specific designs there for extra storage. And that was a direct impact of some of the tours that we did.
Yeah, storage and providing adequate space for students to kind of have practice rooms.
Right.
So there's places to go that if you're,
Right.
you're not consuming the entirety of the band room for
Yeah.
someone who maybe just wants to practice their individual instruments. So we have practice rooms in there as well. So yeah, sort of all of these little seeds of ideas that were kind of gleaned from those tours were really helpful and kind of influential on kind of how we approached the design of
Yeah.
St. John Ball.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. We've got this really unique courtyard approach where the school is kind of shaped in a U shape with a courtyard in the middle, in the center of it. I think some of that inspiration came from my old high school, St. Thomas More, which has had it's an old school, but it's had many renovations over the time. And they, had kind of a courtyard approach. And it was like, how do we make it so that, we've got a school that has this unique sort of gathering place, or where you can host events, you can do things like that. Can you tell us a little bit about how the courtyard's been designed?
Yeah, and I it probably goes back a little bit to sort of our initial conversation of these kind of really kind of rational boxes,
right?
And if you can kind of see on the image there, the school is really made up of three boxes essentially.
Mm-hmm.
One linear one that kind of runs along 24th Avenue, which is your main kind of classroom wing, if you will.
Yeah.
And then at each end, to the west, we have the athletics wing, made up of the gymnasium, fitness room, change rooms, all of those types of things. And then on the other side, we have the arts wing. So that's where the future theater will be, the band room, oral room, all of those types of spaces. So that 3-part building allowed us to kind of create this essentially 3 sides defining the courtyard in the middle.
Yep.
And the way we positioned it on the site, that courtyard is taking advantage of south light. So it's, not this great idea of a courtyard, but it's in shadow all the time and no one wants to use it because it's dark and dreary. But it's south facing, and it also is used as the space where you can spill from the inside of the school out to the courtyard. So in that east-west kind of volume along 24th is where we have the big atrium, the main circulation and student commons of the school. So that will house the seating for the cafeteria. So that cafeteria on nice days can spill out onto the courtyard. From the arts wing, when the future theater is built, that'll allow events to spill out into the courtyard as well.
Yep.
So that courtyard is really a key kind of, heart and center, one of them anyway. And kind of a real, really drove the design concept for the school itself.
That's right. Because there's always limited costs or limited funding, I should say.
Yeah.
We had challenges right out of the gate, of course, with budgeting and trying to figure out, how we're going to do this. I think we've got the best use of our property in terms of where we placed the building so that we could have a field. The building kind of retains the field a little bit because remember it was on a slope.
Yeah.
And so that was really well thought out. What might you think are other great value engineering? I hate to put you on the spot with this. I know it's not one of the questions, but some of the value engineering, because you can, when you're doing a big project like this, you can value engineer through surgery where you just start cutting things out. Say, we can't do this, can't do that, you can't afford this, can't afford that. Do you have an example of what we did to try and make something a little bit more affordable that still looks good?
Well, I think
as well.
Yeah, I think when you talk about the cost of buildings, it can start pretty early on in terms of how you design the form, right? Some forms are more expensive. If there's a lot of jogs and angles and curves, the detailing gets very complicated. And, I think that just flows down into the cost of the building.
Right.
So from day one, we took a kind of a more boxy, rational approach. So I think that helps. And then it's sort of really deciding where you spend the money, right? And I think quite often it's picking those moments in the building that you really want to showcase and kind of elevate the building a little bit more. I think in terms of its in terms of its feel or aesthetic. I'd say in this particular instance that main student commons is a little bit the main feature space in the building, and that's where we decided to switch the structural system. Like the building's primarily a steel structure,
right?
But in that student commons, we began to introduce some heavy timber, so some glulam columns and beams, and really start to infuse some warmth into the space. And I think in schools as well, that that connection to nature is important. Kind of a building just full of paint and drywall isn't overly inspiring sometimes. So I think finding those areas where you can do some expression with the structure and using wood, I think, is a real suitable and appropriate material for kind of a school environment. I think it just creates a level of comfort in the space. And probably the other one was the chapel as well, really putting emphasis on, which I think we'll probably get into as well. But making sure that was a key feature in the school as well.
Yeah. The dining hall and the student commons, student lounge area that spills out into the courtyard is spectacular. Like, I think I cannot wait to have the first open house in our new campus. Here we're in our current little old building right now, which is an old elementary school that we converted, that was built in the 60s, that we converted into a temporary high school. That's our temporary campus. So our last open house we had there, promoting the new campus, but we're in this old little building. It's pretty challenging to do. But next year, of course, we're going to be having our open house in the new. I cannot wait to see the look on people's faces when they come through there. I mean, right now I'm touring people through the school during construction. Key stakeholders, some parents, people that have been involved with the project. And right now, even today, touring them through the camp, they're just like, I had no idea. This is unbelievable. How spectacular the school's turned out. So,
yeah, you have to be careful as well. I remember having a conversation with one of the teachers at the school, and they were quite, they were talking about the existing school and kind of what a community has been developed there, because it's smaller, right? So you're able to kind of have those connections and. There's a quaintness, I think, to the school, and now kind of being put into a larger school. I think there's a valid question of how do you maintain community, in the school at mass, right? And at a larger scale. And so I think things like the student commons and making sure these spaces are comfortable and not too sterile, and kind of have the have spaces in the school that can still kind of foster that togetherness. Both the students gathering together and kind of staff feeling connected are all kind of important things when you're kind of moving into a larger school building.
Yeah, it's a big challenge to try and keep the culture that we have in the school right now. And bring it over. We're determined to do that in one form or another. It's going to look different, but we've got such an incredible culture in our school today, and to be able to bring that over, it's going to be an exciting time. We're going to grow, well, in some ways slowly into the building, but in other ways, there's just we'll be more than double in size next year. The following year, we'll be adding 150 students every year to the school.
And now you'll have incredible amenities.
And then we'll have absolutely. So one of the things that we had to do, we decided early on we wanted to build the entire structure, everything, but we needed to phase it financially. So we did it differently than maybe some projects in the past that have been done, even within our archdiocese, where you build one building and then you wait till you have enough money, and then you build the next building beside it, which makes sense. It can be a little bit deflating for some, because you're like, oh, we're on this never plan. We're never going to see the building. So we decided to build the entire structure, but not finish it all, so that we could grow into it as needed. Can you describe that a little bit?
Yeah. So we planned out the entire school, all three wings, if you were. And, when the budgeting sort of, when we started getting down to, okay, what could we realistically execute within kind of the funds available today?
Yeah.
We had to, like you say, kind of take a look at the school and decide, okay, what do we need today and what can we defer to a later date? And, did that mean not building one of the wings or, building the shell, like you said, and kind of defer just the interior of the space? And I think through kind of conversations, amongst ourselves and the contractor and kind of looking at costs, generally speaking, better to build the shell, at least, of even areas that you kind of can't complete the interior of right now, because number one, you're taking advantage of the momentum on site and everyone's mobilized anyway to do that work. And as we know in construction, the costs just keep on going up and up. So the price today is probably better than what the price is going to be, a couple of years from now.
Anytime down the road. Exactly. Yeah.
So kind of looking at what areas of the interior. Okay, so if we finish to back up. So if we finish the entirety of the school and at least its shell form, what areas can we carve back on the interior to sort of marry back up with the budget that we have today?
Right.
So I think thankfully, given the the way the school was designed, the one wing of the building, it was relatively easy to say, okay, let's not finish that wing, right? And that's a box of space that we can kind of, finish off when the funds are available.
Right.
So, we have a plan where, areas are deferred, ones are finished, but I think when students move in next September, the school will feel finished.
Yeah.
Right. And those deferred areas will kind of be finished off, when funds are available. So, the design of the school, I think, accommodated those deferred areas quite well without kind of making it feel too ad hoc, I guess.
And we can finish them off without it being too disruptive. Because right now the only unfinished classrooms we have are on the bottom floor.
Correct. Yeah.
So even sound wise, if we had to actually be doing construction while classes were on, we can mitigate sound disruptions because it's all the lower floor.
It's below you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's even that we kind of thought out very well, so that as we're finishing, we could even finish 2 or 4 more classes as needed, and we can be able to do that relatively quickly as well.
Yeah. And I think even looking at the sports field, kind of making sure there's a field available for students from day one.
Yeah.
And then how do we prepare the site to allow for kind of a future turf field, for example.
Yeah.
So, I think it's a process, and I think Notre Dame went through a similar process where I think they built their school, but maybe didn't have the funds for the field just then, so that came at a later date, and now that field's complete, and it's really it's great.
Yeah, that's a spectacular school as well, Notre Dame in Vancouver. Completely rebuilt. It's rebuilt on a different financial plan than what we did.
Yes,
because we're a little bit more standalone. We're not a part of the CISVA. We're a CISVA affiliate school. That's the Catholic Independent Schools of Vancouver Archdiocese. That's a mouthful, hence the CISVA. But we're an affiliate school, so we operate the same way. We're not funded the same way. The affiliate schools or the CISVA schools, they get parish funding, so the parishes will chip in to build a high school. So we're different in that aspect. So we've got a lot of debt, unfortunately. Our tuition fee schedule is different than the CISVA schools. It's safe to say it's more money. It's not because we're greedy or we're offering more programs. It's because it's being funded differently. And so it was either doing it that way or basically not doing it at all. So once again, we have to be very budget conscious. All the schools are budget conscious, but we had lofty visions of having a spectacular campus, spectacular school, great culture. with financial constraints.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
and that starts right with architecture, right out of the gate. So, congratulations on a great job.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah. Now, speaking of designs early on, we talked a little bit about the chapel.
Yeah.
Proud to say we've got the largest chapel, I believe, in all of the Catholic schools in
Yeah.
Lower Mainland here, which is we've got over 100 students that can will be able to fit in the chapel, I believe. When it's done.
We're actually
Tell me good
I
news.
think the latest 150.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
That is huge. Yeah. So we can get a whole grade level in there.
Yeah.
For Mass.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's the best news of the day. I'm going to take that as a win.
There we go.
Okay, so 150 can fit in there, which is huge. That's absolutely great. Now, we originally had the chapel in a different location, and we were deep into the design stage.
We were. I think we were.
We were kind of like finalizing.
The ink was dried.
Exactly. Yeah. And then it was Father Donnelly that we who is the Archbishop's representative for our school. He sits on the society board and the school board, and he was like, "Nope, can't be there." Do you remember how that conversation went?
I do. I think my head dropped, and but yeah, there was. It jokes aside, I think it was a good discussion and sort of I think indicative of the design process a little bit, where each iteration just gets a little bit better, right? And it's through input of we can't do this on our own, right? We our job is to get the inputs from as many people as we can to sort of interpret that, get it onto paper, and have a plan and a design that kind of meets the needs. And so this was just one step in the design process, really, I guess, at the end of the day. But we had some good discussions, and it was really, I think the discussion went, okay, move it from its existing location and try and put it in the center of the school.
Right.
And so we did some design explorations, and we were like, no, it just doesn't quite work there. The way the building was laid out, and we're almost feeling it wasn't even giving enough prominence to the school because it was kind of a little bit buried in the center. So that's when we looked at positioning the chapel more on the west end of the school, which is where the main entrance is.
Right.
And we were able to locate it right above the front entry to the school. So as you approach the school, it is the thing you see. Massive window with a cross defined by colored glazing. So it's really, some striking iconography on the building. And as you enter the school, you kind of pass below it.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, you kind of enter the student commons, which is that main spine that runs east-west through the school. So from the outside, it becomes, the thing that you see as you approach the school. But then on the interior, it was also important to Father Donnelly that the chapel's present on the inside as well. So when you're standing in the student commons, which is this double height, kind of atrium-like space defined by these glue lamp beams, you look back and you see a complementary window, which is kind of the backside of the chapel.
That's right.
Also a big window defined, cross-defined by colored glazing. So whether you're approaching or, inside the school, the chapel is this kind of ever-present element in the design of the structure. So it's at the end of the day, and I think we were chatting before, it was maybe a little frustrating at the time to reshuffle everything, but I think like a lot of things, you go through that effort and you're like, wow, that was worth it.
Yeah.
Because as the school is being constructed now, you look at that chapel and it's a really striking feature.
Yeah, it is. So you can be, it's on the far west end of the school.
That's right.
And you can be on the farthest east end of the school, and you can look back and still see the chapel.
Yeah.
So what an accomplishment there in design, to try and bring it right in, which is exactly what Father Donnelly was saying, this can't be something that's tucked away. And we had it where it was before. When you drive down 24th, you would have seen it on 24th because we had, a big cross on the outside, which it's still there.
Still there.
That cross is still there where the chapel used to be. Which is an interesting story in itself. But that corner would have been prominent on 24th Avenue. So everybody would have been like, well, yeah, that's you can tell that's a faith-based school or a Christian school, Catholic school. So we thought we nailed it where it was.
Yeah.
It's like, this is perfect. Who's not going to want that? It's right up there out front. And then it was, nope.
Yeah.
It's wrong spot. It's like, it's tucked away, you have to go to the chapel to know that there's a chapel there. And it
was lacking that presence from the interior.
It was, yeah. And it was deflating at the time. It was just like, oh, really? We got to start this over again. And wow. But, kudos to you and your team in putting it where it is today. Because now, as you drive, first of all, the cross is still there where it was originally going to go. And when you drive in up 182nd, the new 182nd, you have to drive past it to get into the underground parking lot. So no matter what, when you're coming in the entrance, it is so prominent that everybody sees it. It's like, okay, this is what we're about right out of the gate. And then when you're inside the school, you see it too from all the way from the other end. So
there is an interesting feature inside the school as well, where there's a second story interior bridge.
Yeah.
That connects from
the skywalk.
From kind of the classroom wing over to the athletics wing. So it connects you to the fitness center on the second floor. So as you pass over that bridge, on the one side you see the window of the chapel, and then on the other side you're looking down the student commons, the expressive glue lamp structure, and just kind of that light-filled space, because it's all south-facing with its connection to the courtyard. So the structure is all there right now. Yeah. You can walk it now. So it's really, really rewarding to see. But once the finishes and everything go up, it's really going to come to life.
So here's a question regarding the skywalk, if we can call it that. You don't start a design of a project like this and say, okay, we want to design something that's got a skywalk in it.
Yeah.
It kind of came from some necessity, right? It's like, so we've got this other wing of the school, the athletic wing of the school. And, it's on 2 floors where the change rooms are below. We've got this big workout facility on the top floor. Did the skywalk come from, it's like, well, how do we get from the top floor of the, do you recall that?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's, I think it's like a lot of things. Design is a process, and as you kind of make you start off with initial conceptual ideas, like the idea of the 3 boxes essentially. And then you begin to work out, interior circulation patterns, all of those types of things. So you start hitting these moments of like, oh, okay, we need a convenient way to connect these 2 spaces. How can we do that? We didn't want to create anything that would kind of take away from the openness of the 2-story student commons.
Right.
So we wanted this kind of lighter element kind of crossing that space. So, hence the bridge comes across, has glass guardrails on it to try and make it as light as possible.
Yeah.
And it just becomes a interesting moment where you're able to kind of cross that 2-story atrium space, see the chapel, see down into the student commons, and just provide a functional way to get from the classroom spaces over to the fitness wing.
Yeah.
So I would say that one was more sort of just an evolution of the design process.
Yeah. And it's going to bring other opportunities too, like the glass railings on both sides, to do something artistically on the glass railings. Like, for instance, in the staircase, the main staircase in the, the grand student commons area that takes you upstairs, it's got a big landing.
Yeah.
And which also has glass railings on it as well. And what we've chosen to do is use that as, well, I'm going to let you describe it. What are we putting on those railings there? Yeah.
Well, just to chat about that stair first, it's sort of our main feature stair in the school. And, yeah, I think quite often you can do a stair going from level 1 up to level 2, and it's a stair. Right? That's all it's really meant to be. But in this case, we really wanted to sort of celebrate this stair. So as you come down, you said there's a landing, and I'd say it's not really a landing. It's like a podium.
Yeah.
Right. And the idea there is that can even be a space for, and it's oversized. Right. So that can be a space for if there's informal events within the student commons, that can almost be an ad hoc stage. Furniture can be put up there. It can be a kind of a lounge area for students. There's not only stairs, but kind of seating benches kind of built into it as well. So it really becomes this gathering place in the school, not just a mechanism to get from A to B. And then, you're talking about sort of the glass railings, and we sort of saw that because the stair is a real key element in that space. Looking at the way we can treat that glass railing by kind of having the graduating, the initial graduating class from the school as names on the glass railing, so they can be kind of a ever-present, inaugural class coming out of the school, and kind of really kind of celebrating them as kind of the pioneers, if you will.
Pioneers, Okay, so what we did early on is we canvassed the current school that our kids were in, which was Star of the Sea Elementary, to ask the families, if we built a new high school, would they send their kids to this school? And we got the names of over 400 kids represented by many families that we would be interested in sending the kids to the school, which was key, because that was was the demand there, and that was just from one of our feeder schools. And it was those families that were willing to say, hey, we'll get on board with this, and we'll put up a $25,000 enrollment deposit now to help with seed money, which they'll get back when their kids graduate from the school. And that sort of started the ball rolling to get the whole momentum of the school in process. So those kids that started early were sold this dream of, they're going to graduate from this great new campus. But as time went on, COVID came and disrupted everything and what have you, and there was many delays. So there ended up being 3 graduating classes that did not get to graduate. One of them will be this year, that didn't get to graduate from the new campus. But we always instilled in these students, we were like, look, you are as part of this new campus.
You're part of it.
Yeah, you're going to be SJP2 graduates forever. And this is our campus, and this is your home for high school.
They don't want to do it again.
They don't want to do it again. No, they don't have to start over. So we chose to recognize all 3 of those graduating classes on the so their names will go on that railing. Perfect. And it's prominent right in the center of the school. So and the classes were pretty excited to hear that as well.
Yeah.
They were like, oh, great, because we got this little old school, which is awesome, but we didn't get to experience the big campus, and they got an incredible education. And are continuing to right now. But so that's something that it's pretty special, special.
Well, it's a great, you can't get more kind of central and predominant in the school than that location. So that's going to be a great home for them.
Yeah. Exactly. And Archbishop Miller, that's championed the school from day one. He was a supporter. We couldn't have done it without him. He's also going to be recognized right in the front lobby there too.
That's right.
So. And speaking of recognition, we've got name recognitions, or naming rights for the school that we're launching now. So families can, donors can come in and do. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because we got something going to be going on in the lobby as well, at different parts of the school.
Yeah. So part of, as you mentioned, the funding model for this school is a little bit different. So, donors are sort of a key aspect to the formula here, and how we kind of recognize and sort of find areas in the building to sort of pay homage to them. So in the main lobby there is a large wall that's being reserved as sort of a donor wall for the school. So as soon as you come in the front doors, there's this, it's going to feel more like an art piece than kind of just bunch of names on the wall. So that'll be a real opportunity to sort of give credit where credit's due, and really kind of thank your donors. And so as we were working through the architectural design, sort of identifying areas that we could kind of use to kind of celebrate your donors. So that's a key feature in the main lobby of the school.
Yeah, yeah. Like right now, we have donor for the chapel, the science wing, the theater as well. We've got a donor just before Christmas, actually. The Diamond family has pledged $1 million for that.
Oh, fantastic!
Which is, that's huge. And what people don't realize, or they don't think about, is how these schools get built. It doesn't just come, money just doesn't come granted. Like, this is all 100%. It's all donor money. There is zero government money, or I should say taxpayer money, because the government doesn't have any money. Zero taxpayer dollars that have gone into this. And in fact, it's been this huge community benefit that's been given back to the community to benefit from, with zero cost to the taxpayer. It's 100% donors. And so we'll have an incredible, we want to make sure our donors get recognized properly. Those that want to, we have a lot of anonymous donors as well.
Yeah.
And when people say, well, the Archdiocese kicked in a bunch, which they did, where does the Archdiocese get its money from? It's all donor money. The Catholic Church is the largest charity on the planet in history. And it's all from donors. It's all from people giving back. And that's it's a huge sacrifice that people make. It's probably one of the most rewarding sacrifices. So whether it's, like I said, whether it's anonymous, or whether people want to have their name actually displayed after a loved one or themselves, or even company, we're recognizing corporate donorship as well. So we hope to have our trades room finished downstairs, the shop area.
Right. Yeah.
We want to get a commercial aspect into it, especially. It's a dying industry, it seems. It's an industry. It's not dying. It's dying in terms of us promoting it to our kids, and it being the construction industry, and our infrastructure needs people. We all need people to build all of the buildings that we're in. And there's many hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of people that went into building this campus. And there's a massive shortage of people. So, we're having to reach out to other countries to bring people into our country to help build their own country.
Like you say, I think it's sort of, for lack of a better word, I think the trades kind of went out of fashion for a while. And now, I think we're kind of on the upswing again. Whereas I think a lot of, younger generation, coming out of high school now, I think they're seeing the opportunities, because there is a shortfall, as you mentioned. And, I think, it's, buildings are complex, and, we need those young minds to kind of step up, get into the trades, but also, we don't just need the project managers, the architects, the engineers, but we also need, the tradespeople to really kind of bring this stuff to life, right?
Yeah. Today, a lot of kids, I think, wouldn't even know how to change a light bulb. When after they've graduated high school, and it's like, these are some of the basic things that, we should all at least be exposed to in one way, shape, or form. Like when you turn a light switch on, what's actually happening there? What is it doing? And so these are some.
Well, it's a rewarding vocation as well, because I think when, even in my own work, we spend a lot of time drawing lines on paper, creating architectural designs, creating architectural drawings, but it's not real, right? It's not real at that stage. It's not until you start seeing, the formwork coming out of the ground and the structure going up, and we're not doing that. That's the trades doing that. But yet that's the most rewarding part,
right?
Is actually seeing that come out of the ground. And, I think that's where we get reward as sort of designers, is, seeing that work come to life. But I think for the trades who are kind of doing that on site, that must be incredibly rewarding as well, to sit back and say, hey, we built that. And we need it all.
I'd like to see one of the things that we've done differently as a company outside in my real job, is quite often we'll have an open house for the trades that worked on the project, so that they can see the project finished at the end of the day. The ones that they can say, look at this beautiful project. I had my hand in doing this. And it's really interesting because we see a lot of the tradespeople that will bring their spouse to say, look, this is what I've been working on. This is what I've been telling you about, and now you can see the end product. I hope to do that at our school as well at the end, to bring back some of the trades, to say, thank you for being in this industry. Thank you for your hand in making. I know it's your job, but you chose this profession. We need more people in this industry going forward. We need more leadership in this industry, and there's so much opportunity. It's going to be a long time before we have robots building everything for us. We need people. We need innovative thinkers. We need hard workers. And it's a good paying profession, getting into the industry. There's a lot of really well-paying jobs within construction in general.
Yeah, absolutely.
From, like you said, from the consultants, engineers, architects, all the way through to the people that are sweeping up. We need all of them. We need. So I encourage that. Mark, it has been a fantastic chat.
Thank you very much for having me.
And you've been a pleasure to work with on this project and others, I must say. I recommend your company as well, Ekistics Architecture.
Yeah, thank you.
I've referred you to other, and we hope to work even within the Archdiocese on maybe some other projects as well. Catholic Pacific College, you never know. That's something that could be coming up.
Yeah, so I appreciate it. And appreciate getting to kind of know, like we said, it's been a long journey, and I really appreciate getting to know kind of yourself and, the teachers at the school and the students. We had a workshop with the students early on, right, which we didn't get a chance to touch on. But, I think those are some of the rewarding things that I'm going to take away from this project as well, beyond the building itself, is just kind of being given the opportunity to be so ingrained in the process. So that's been, really rewarding. And, thanks for that. I know, our team at Ekistics, it's not just me. It's, there's a larger team behind the scenes. And so, we really appreciate being part of this project. And thanks for having me on the podcast. All right. It's been fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And we encourage you, if you're watching this on YouTube or Spotify, click the like button. And you can also subscribe, because we've got many more of these fantastic episodes coming up, all about Catholic education, which does matter. And there's many matters to discuss. So and this was just one of them. Thanks again for coming, Mark.
Wonderful.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Troy.
All right. Thank you for listening to Catholic Education Matters. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow the podcast on your favorite listening platform, rate it, and also leave a review. Don't forget to share this episode with your friends and family to help spread the word about the impact of Catholic education. Be sure to listen again.